Welcome, boys and girls. Tonight, we have for you 3 creepy and unnerving stories from the depths of Reddit. So lay back and hide under the covers. It's about to get spooky. These creatures, they told us, are animals. For your own safety, stand back. We had descended into the depths of the mansion, guided by torch fire through subterranean paths, for close to a quarter of an hour before our clandestine journey at last ended. Stood before a heavy gate, the weak among us gagged and sputtered. My eyes watered as a toxic stench penetrated our senses. So foul it was that none dared to continue inside. But always we flocked to the shepherd of curiosity. We entered what I can only adequately describe as a zoo. Wrought iron cages bordered every wall from floor to roof, most large enough to hold any one of us, yet some too cramped for even a child. What fiends were kept inside them escaped to the ink-dark corners of their cells with shrieks and howls as radiance poured in. But not before I spied the flutter of a leathery wing too massive for a common bat. Our attention was inevitably drawn to the gurney in the center of this prison, over which an intense light shone down upon the subject lying on it there. The creature. How does one describe that which eludes all description? I noticed first the color of its hide, an abnormal puce hue which hung from its crooked carcass like wet papyrus. Appendages like gnarled branches jutted this way and that out of the nest of its viscera. Though logically it lay supine, the geometry of its form made little sense and damaged my reason, as if staring too long at this wretched thing inflicted me with a dizzying ailment. That which I could not fathom reminded me of a distraught memory, only easily perceivable through the abstract. The riddle of its existence held no solace. I saw it, yes, but it stole me. For what manner of God would make such horrors? Yet, in spite of my disgust, I could not turn my gaze from what I gathered were its eyes. Eyes like bloated cysts of yellow bile filled the craters in its warped skull. So entranced was I, falling into the chasm of those serpentine pupils, that I did not hear my company leave. Nor did I notice the scraping of chains on bare rock, bound to a gangrel claw that slipped between the bars of its cage near my feet and touched me. I thought I died then and there, and still I believe it. Because only in death could I come face to face with that living insanity, that which had languished in the comfortable unknown, that which now slinked forward. And out of the shadows and into the light, I beheld at last the full figure of that which God had cursed, made in his own image. I could not cry for my heart, and my soul fought first to exit from my body. And then I heard it, though gurgled and barely above a hush. That voice was a hell-sent nightmare, one which I understood. "Help us," he pleaded. I remember when I was about 13 or 14, I used to still hang out with my middle school homies. I remember telling them we should hang out. It was me and a couple friends and one of my friend's girlfriend, so about 4 in total, including me. Anyways, one night we decided to go out late and have fun. Smoke some weed, try and get alcohol, stuff like that, and we came across this big 2-story house that had burned down not too long ago. We decided to go and smoke there for some reason, don't really know why. Anyways, we walk in, everything's all burnt and old, and it smelled like death inside. The smell was so horrible. I don't know why. As kids, we decided to keep walking around. But anyway, we kept hearing this sound like a back and forth sound. Super weird noise, couldn't really explain it. So we slowly walk upstairs, and we could hear the noise even louder. Then, just behind the door at the end of the hall, was where the noise was coming from. We all were scared, didn't really know what to do. So one of my friends opened the door very slowly, and with me being behind him, what we saw will haunt us for a long time. A homeless man hung from a piece of the broken debris on top of the ceiling. Not only was he hung, but was gutted. I mean, we saw things come out of his stomach that we had never seen before in our life. We all pretty much threw up. And as kids, we didn't know what to do, so we told my friend's parents, and they called the next day. Turns out the dude wasn't even homeless. He was murdered. I guess there was writing on the walls in his blood behind him. That read, "We will always watch you. Your sacrifice is our gain." I don't know if that was a cult or just a crazed murdered, but it tore our tiny brains apart. I work at the US and Mexican border as a security border patrol. You see, some things you're not supposed to and do come across border runners, which we do apprehend. But that's most all we have to worry about down here. Until one night. It was a Tuesday night, and I got the night shift due to my lack of paying attention and goofing off. My supervisors put me at one of the lesser-known borders along the line. Imagine a few sheds along with some lights covered by trees, and somewhat a dirt road that looks like it goes to nowhere. It's kind of creepy to imagine, but being there is something of a surreal place and extremely boring. In case you don't know, there are usually 5 to 6 gourds split posted on each side of the borderline. And we do have some cars passing over, but not as exciting as the bigger checkpoints. Working where I was wasn't that bad. We'd talk with the Mexican gourds, joke around and play soccer, or maybe throw around a football around. But honestly, it was better than where I was before. Just as we finished our rounds along the borderline by a jeep, we got out of the car and sat on the gate having our late lunch. There was a sudden sound of tree branches snapping, which was common cause of the animal life around the surrounding area. We suddenly heard something that didn't sound right, which prompted the Mexican gourds to come straight up to the gate. The sound of a loud, fast snapping started to echo in the darkness of the trees. I winced and took a few steps back while pulling out my flashlight. My partner did the same, and we began shining our lights into the trees, trying to find the source of the sound. I looked over my shoulder at one of the Mexican's guards, and he points his finger into darkness to my right. And there, just along the gate, was something I didn't know was even possible. Me and my partner stunned and questioning what we were looking. And at that point, we both ran back into our booth and pressed our faces against the glass as we watched this thing crawling into the light, while our Mexican friends did the same thing. And from the dark, this thing crawled, and well, what I can only describe as a giant 5 to 6 foot mosquito-looking like creature. The eyes were big and wide, like the size of a CD. 6 legs that had barbs and wings that were at least 5 feet that laid on the back of this thing. It stopped just on the side of the road and started running, its feet against the light post, and it reared up, twitched its wings at the sight of the few bright lights we had. My partner then, in a panic, tried to get our supervisor on the radio, but I stopped him from doing so, because who was going to believe us? And I didn't want to seem crazy might lose my job over something like this. Something that could probably suck the blood out of a full-grown man in a few gulps. After about 5 minutes of observing this being attracted to the light, I pounded my fist on the window, hoping to drive it away. But it seemed like I just caught its attention in a bad way. The snapping sound then started coming from its mouth as it tilted its head towards our direction, and took a few seconds to notice me and my partner in the booth. And it slowly just kind of stepped back and made its way back into the darkness while snapping loudly. My partner and I stepped out from the booth and pointed out lights to the left side of the DM border gates and watched this bug pick up its speed and scurried into the bushes. We could hear the Mexican patrols yelling for us, asking where it went, and we replied its direction shortly after. Apparently, there are a few of these big bug things that hang around the area, according to the Mexican patrols. But they don't harm anyone, and it's always best to keep a safe distance. I believe in a lot of things, but this one definitely a new one for me. And I just can't seem to wrap my mind around the fact that a bug can grow this large. And why hasn't anyone even captured anything like this in a photo or video? We are close to a Texas town on the east, and no one? That's hard to believe. But I guess some things just aren't meant to come to light. I'm working on the central border now due to relocation orders. So I hope the next guard on the east side of the gates is okay and doesn't come across this giant mosquito-looking thing, because I don't think I'd want to see it again. But if he or she has seen it by now, good luck on trying to convince everyone else this thing even exists.